When I think about yesterday, my oh my.
Hello and welcome to my channel. I am so excited for the video that you are about to see, which is the first in a 6-part series I am making to find my top 5 decks that I have acquired in 2023. If you are new here, my name is Andy. Welcome to my little corner of YouTube, and we're gonna have some fun. So I've created some rating criteria to find my favorite decks and a little bit of a scoring system, just because that's fun for me. So let's go through the rating criteria first. So for our rating criteria, I've created 5 categories in no particular order of importance. Number 1, we have card usability. This is going to be judging on card stock, shuffleability, card size, how easy it is to physically handle. Number 2 is its versatility. How versatile is it to use in different types of readings and different types of settings? Number 3, I've combined energy and personal connection. So this is like the general vibe of the deck. How good does it feel? And have I created a personal connection with it? How connected do I feel to the deck? Number 4 is readability. How easy is it to read in a reading? Is it tripping me up? Is it really easy? Does it flow really well? Does it read really accurately or really well? Or does it have some fails? And number 5 is its uniqueness. This is giving those decks that maybe don't score very well in the versatility category or the readability category a bit of a fighting chance. How unique is it? How am I learning something new? Am I getting something new from this deck? Is it trying to do something different? Which makes it probably score quite low in the readability category, but in the uniqueness category it may score highly. So those are our 5 rating criteria, and in each criteria we're going to be giving it a score. I love smiley faces. So this is how I'm going to score it to kind of get the emotional response, and then actually turn that into a numerological score. And so I've named our emojis here just so we are on the same page to talk about them. And I did look this up. This video is well researched. So the first category, the highest scoring category, is the party face. This is the rating that this is getting me real excited. It's bringing the party, and we're really going for it. So within the party face category, the score is going to range between 80 and 100 points. Next up is the smiley face. Not feeling excited, but certainly very happy about it. And our rating is 79 to 59 in that. The next category is neutral face. Completely neutral, don't like or dislike. And then we have the unamused face. Something's not right here, or I'm a bit confused. So that's the next category, and our scoring could be between 37 and 17. And then the next one is making me angry or frustrated, some elements of this deck. So that in that particular category is going to give it a point ranging between 0 and 16. Hopefully that'll make sense as I'm kind of working through my system here that I created. I will be talking us through it. And so by the time we get to, videos and have scored many decks, I'm sure we will all be very clear on what all these mean. So that in each category, that's going to give any particular deck a maximum of 100 points in each category and 500 possible total points. On to our first deck, the decks under $23. So these are our budget decks. These are the ones that will cost the least amount of money, and we're going to be working our way up to the most expensive decks. And then the last category is going to be last minute entries. Like I'm sitting here on the 2nd of December. We all go to the 31st, with the last video is going to be posted up on the 31st. So there's going to be some decks coming in this month. There's going to be ones that I haven't cataloged yet that I find, and so that last video is going to include all those decks and all the new ones that have come in. So without further ado, let's get the party started. The first deck on the list is the Medieval Mischief Tarot. And this deck is the lowest price deck in my collection from 2023. I got it back in October. The current price on Amazon is $11. I paid $15 back in October, so the price has actually gone down on this one. So let's have a look at it and our criteria. So it does have a guidebook and a couple of cards here. I have used it a few times since I got it. So let's give it a shuffle and talk about the card usability to start. I mean, it's a lovely size. It's really easy to shuffle. So I'm not excited to shuffle it, but it definitely is easy to shuffle. So I'm going to give it a smiley face, and pretty high in that rating. So I am going to give it a solid 70 in the smiley face category for usability. So let's talk about versatility now. So the cards are black and white. There's a few colors. Like here, there's some purples in some of the cards. The elemental symbols are different colors. We have red and blue. And as far as versatility, I would not use this deck for a reading for anyone. I think it could do any type of reading, but it's not one that I'm thinking about pulling out just for anyone. I mean, there's a few kind of odd looking characters here, and for, you know, for anyone it wouldn't. And I would also need to be in a particular mood for this color palette or lack of it, and these particular personalities in the deck. So for versatility, I'm going to give it the unamused face, and we're going to give it a high end of that category, kind of going towards the neutral end. So I'm going to give that a 37. So next we have the energy and or the personal connection with this deck. I don't have a personal connection to this deck, and it does have very solidly neutral energy. So I'm going to give it a high end of the neutral because it does feel quite good. So I'm going to give it a 58 for its energy and personal connection score. Now, its readability is quite good because the elemental symbols are very clear on the deck. The numbers are nice and large. This deck is very easy to physically read. I have given a few readings with this deck, and its reading accuracy is a little off. I don't think it's a fantastic reader. I feel like its readability is in the middle somewhere. I don't think it's the best reader. I don't think it's the worst reader. So we're going to give it a neutral rating again, and a little bit more in the middle here because I think it is very much neutral. So I am going to give this one a neutral face and a 48 on the readability, in the readability category. Now, its uniqueness, it is very unique. There's nothing else quite like it in my collection. Its size is a little bit unique for a tarot deck. There aren't a lot, or, there are more standard size tarot decks than tarot decks of this size. So it is quite unique, and its uniqueness, the things that are unique about it, do make me pretty happy. So I'm going to give this a solid smiley face in the uniqueness category and a score of 79. And that gives the Medieval Mischief Tarot. Here's its little card here. The Medieval Mischief Tarot a score of 291 out of a possible 500 points. The next deck on the list is the least expensive deck if I was going on what I paid versus the monetary value. So right now this deck is available on Amazon for $14. I paid $5 back in June. There was a few months where there was like a crazy price on this deck. And so I picked it up because it was $5 with free shipping. So let's have a look. This is the Sacred Web Tarot. The guidebook is absolutely like huge. The box quality too. The quality of this deck on what you would expect for a $5 deck or a $14 deck is fantastic. So let's talk about the Sacred Web deck. These are the backs. So first category, card usability. These cards are so so thin. So I mean, yes, there is usability. Durability, I'm not so sure, because they're just so thin. And it's not easy to handle because I'm afraid to bend them, you know? So although, you know, obviously you can riffle shuffle it, pretty easily. I don't know. The cardstock is just lacking. I wish they had not spent so much on the box and the quality of the book and put a bit of that quality into the cards. So for usability, I am going to have to give this the angry, frustrated face because it does really kind of make me a little bit frustrated when the thing that we're using most, which is the cards, are the thing that the quality is taken away from, it feels like. So I am going to give this a score of 10 in the angry, frustrated face range for card usability. Versatility. This deck is unfortunately going to score quite low as well. This deck is strange. I mean, it's definitely not readable out of the box. I wouldn't use it to read for anyone else. This deck is going to take some study. And I don't know if I'm interested enough to necessarily put the time in to do the study. I do like it. When I'm looking at it now, and every time I've pulled it out, I'm like, you're very interesting. And I would like, you know, I wouldn't mind spending time with you. But versatility, it's going to be low as well. I'm going to give it the unamused face and a score of 20. Yeah, a score of 20. So the next category, we have energy and personal connection. There's really none here. The energy, I have no personal connection to this deck. So it's, you know, on that front, we could score it a 0. And the energy of the deck is just a little odd. So I am going to give this the angry, frustrated face again on our energy and personal connection. And I'm going to give it a 5. A 5. Next is readability. I feel like I've already addressed that. I don't feel like I could read this without the guidebook. And so its readability score has to be low as well. But I'm going to give it on the higher end because I don't mind a deck that I have to use the guidebook. So I'm going to give this the unamused face on the readability and give it a score of 20. And then uniqueness, well, I mean, it's got that going for sure. But am I excited? Do I feel happy with its uniqueness? Is it uniqueness in a way, you know, that makes me feel good? I don't know. But I am still going to give it the smiley face for uniqueness. But I'm going to give it the lower end of the smiley face because, you know, I don't know. It's just, it's not getting me excited, which I feel like in order to be unique and score highly, it needs to be unique and also get me excited to use it. So I'm going to give it the neutral face, and I am going to give it a 43 for uniqueness. So that gives the Sacred Web a grand total of 98 points and puts it in second place as the second deck. So we'll see how it fares as we go along. Probably not very well. But we'll see if it ends up in last place. That could be interesting. On to the next on the list. Comes in at $16 currently right now, unbelievably, on Amazon. I bought this deck back in October. I paid $22, so a bit of a bargain now. And mine is in this cozy bag here. Now, if you don't have a bag like this, you should go and get one from my friend Krista. Her Etsy shop is Crochet Witchwear. She'll make you one, not exactly like this, but she'll make you one, she'll make you one like that. This bag holds the Cozy Witch Tarot. This deck makes me incredibly happy. It's a real favorite. Just a spoiler as we go in, but we will rate it in the categories and find its score. And so the first category being usability. So let's look at the cardstock. The cardstock is not bad. It's a little kind of cardboardy, definitely not lush. You can feel that kind of cardboardy noise, but it's thick enough that it doesn't have that cheap feel to it. And even though I didn't give the Sacred Web the benefit of the doubt that that it was only $5 and it's going to have thin cardstock. This is not an indie deck. This is a mass market deck. It is inexpensive. So the cardstock expectations are met here. And obviously it's easy to shuffle. Now, if you have really small hands, these cards are a little oversized. So it might be problematic, but they're not huge. So I think that most people would find this deck, as far as usability, pretty good. But I feel like it is in the neutral category. It's not, making me incredibly happy, although I do really enjoy the very rounded corners. And I do kind of like that it's oversized, which is not part of its usability, necessarily, unless as my eyes start to decline, I may, appreciate that in my decks. So for card usability, I am going to give this the highest possible score in the neutral category, which is a 58. And then we'll move on to the versatility. I would use this deck to read for anyone. It's very female centric, but I would have no problems pulling this deck out to read for someone who doesn't present as female. I think that it does a really good job of kind of conveying its message. I don't feel like it would shut anyone out. I'm kind of interested to test that out and see, read it on do a reading for someone kind of like the polar opposite of what this deck represents, and see how they feel about it, see if it makes them feel good. But I genuinely feel that anyone getting a reading with this deck would come away with that kind of seen, supported, cozy feel. And that is coming from a completely biased place of, absolutely feeling that from this deck. So versatility, I'm going to give it a great smiley face, and I'm going to give it a high score of 79. So next, energy and personal connection. That it is really high. This deck excites me. This is the first one so far. We're going to get the party face out. This deck makes me incredibly happy. I feel a real connection to this deck. So I am going to give this a and 97 out of 100 for connection, personal connection and energy. The vibes in this deck are off the charts good for me. So that's that one. And then readability. How easy is it to read? How well does it do in a reading? And it does really, really well. I've had decks that have had, the messages on the bottom here and that haven't worked as well, and they're distracting and I don't agree with them. But this deck, the messages are always really spot on. It doesn't feel like they're just kind of, the normal meanings. They're unique and they add to the reading. So readability, I am also going to give this the party face because I think the readability is really, really good. I'm going to give it right in the middle of the party face at a 90 out of a possible 100. For uniqueness, I feel like it is pretty unique. I think it has a unique voice. It knows what it is. It's coming from that perspective. I don't feel like I have anything exactly like this in my quite like this in my collection. It is not the most unique deck I have for sure. It kind of I'm saying that it's like, it's not, it's definitely not an RWS clone by any means, but I don't think it kind of goes its own direction and goes like way out there with its uniqueness. So I'm going to give this a neutral face as far as uniqueness, and feeling, that it's somewhere in the middle there. And I'm going to, give it somewhere in the middle of the neutral as well. So I'm going to give it a uniqueness score of 48. So that is going to give the Cozy Witch Tarot a very high score of 372 and making it the winner so far. I have the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. This I got back in September. The current price on Amazon is $17, and that's what I paid. So let's have a look at the cards. The card quality is actually really good. And it's a nice shuffle, a little bit stiff. And I prefer rounded corners, and these are a little bit pointier than I like. But overall, the card quality is really good. The images are clear. Minor Arcana suit names have all been changed, but I went through and wrote the suit names in the guidebook. But as far as usability, cardstock quality, cardstock size, this is actually really good, and it makes me pretty happy. I'm not excited about it, but it's great. So I am going to give this a smiley face, and I'm going to give it the highest level smiley face, which is a 79 for this one for card usability. As far as versatility, I do feel like this deck is quite versatile. I think that if you didn't know it was themed Dungeons and Dragons, you really wouldn't know. It reminds me a little bit of the Slow Tarot in a weird way, in its art style and its color palette. I think it feels both traditional and modern. A great storytelling deck to read. The guidebook is fantastic. There's not much there, but what it gives you kind of really gets your mind kind of going into really interesting places. I'm a fan of this deck. So I'm also going to give it a high score on versatility. And again, a smiling face, and I'm going to give it a 69 on versatility. So energy and personal connection. I don't feel a personal connection to this deck just because really the Dungeons and Dragons, I don't feel like I've quite getting as much from the deck as somebody who, enjoys that fandom. But the energy of the deck is really good. So again, a smiley face, but on the lower end of smiley, heading towards neutral. So a 59 for this one. And then on readability, I'm going to give it a few points down on readability, only because of the suit name changes. And it took me a while to actually figure out, like what I was looking at. And I think like I thought one was one and then I changed it. I mean, it made sense once I had it down, but, my journey to get there was a lot. And I don't know that I, would be able to take it out of the box, not look at the guidebook, not look at my references after after not using it for a while, and know, be confident that I would know the card that I was looking at. So for readability, I'm actually going to give it an unamused face, because I just like them to keep the suit names as I know them, and I'm going to give it a 30, no, a 25, unamused face on the readability. Uniqueness, I think it is very actually unique in its theme. I think they've done a great job of making it, so that even if Dungeons and Dragons, isn't your thing, like that, you're still able to use it and really get a lot from it. And it is a pretty unique deck in my collection. So I'm going to give this one a smiling face, and I am going to give it a 74 for uniqueness. So that gives the Dungeons and Dragons a very healthy score of 306 and puts it in second place, after the Cozy Witch, the Celestial Tarot. And I paid $19 on Amazon back in May, and currently it's on Amazon for $17. So as far as card usability, this is a US Games deck, so the card stock is really nice to shuffle. It's a really nice size, and no complaints at all on usability. Does it make me excited? No, it doesn't make me excited, but certainly makes me very happy to handle. So I am going to give for usability a smiley face, and I am going to give it a score of 85. Next, we have a versatility. I actually bought this deck to use in my goddess work, so not for general readings. I would not choose this deck if I was going to do a general reading. It is, for me, working with a very specific practice. Wouldn't do a full reading. I'm pulling, one or two cards at a time. So its versatility is on the low end. I'm not going to call it, we're going to give it an unamused face on the versatility. Not that there's really a problem, but just as a versatility, it's on the lower end of neutral, and so I am going to give it an unamused face, and I'm going to give it a high unamused face, and with a score of 37. For the energy and personal connection, this deck has very good energy about it, I think. I haven't really made a personal connection with this deck yet, but I feel like that could definitely happen. So I'm going to give this a neutral face at the moment, with a high neutral face score of 57. Next, we have readability. The readability for this deck is on the lower end. But I feel like I could, if somebody handed me this deck to do a reading, I wouldn't need the guidebook. I feel like I could read it out of the box. I don't feel like I would be getting all of the layers in doing that. So I am going to give it a neutral face for readability, a little bit on the lower end, just because some of the associations are not necessarily how I would read the cards, so there's kind of a workaround with that. So I am going to give it a lower end neutral face of 40. And uniqueness, I don't know. I feel like do I have other decks in my collection that do the same kind of job as this one does? Is it that unique? And I think the answer to that is probably no on uniqueness. I'm glad to have it. If this was a really expensive indie deck, $100 or $200, this probably wouldn't be in my collection. So I am going to give this uniqueness rating with the unamused face of 29. So that gives the Celestial Tarot a total score of 248 points, putting it in 4th place at the moment. Next, we have the Faerie Tarot. This I bought back at the beginning of the year in March and for $22, and it is now $17. So first we're going to look at card usability, and this is another US games deck. So cardstock is really good. It's a different size than a standard tarot size. On the shorter side, it's a little stiffer than the other decks, but it is still a really good shuffle. I'm going to score it a happy face or a smiley face. So I'm going to give it a smiley face, and I'm going to give it a high smiley face. And I'm going to give it a 77. So let's look at versatility. I use this deck specifically for my fairy practice. I think I could use it in a general rating for someone else and for myself, and I have. So I think in that respect, it is actually a very versatile deck. I think it, for the most part, reads quite easily. So I think its versatility score is actually going to be high as well. It doesn't make me excited for its versatility. Although when I recently, so I got it in March and I didn't really use it that much. And then just this last season, if you watched my Current Vibe deck last, I've using it for my work with house fairies, and that actually did make me excited to kind of use it in that way. So let's give this one a party face for versatility, because I think it is quite versatile. And we'll give it a low end of the party face, so we're going to give it an 83 for versatility. Energy and personal connection. I actually think the energy of this one is a little bit not on the high end. I really think you have to take the time to get to know it. And that certainly was the case for me. I had no connection, really no personal connection with it for most of the time that it was in my collection. So I got it in March, and I just started connecting with it maybe in September, which I think is kind of more represents for me, it's seasonal space. But I don't think the energy is coming through positive right from the get-go for me. So I am going to give this a neutral face on the energy, and on the lower end of the neutral face. So I will give it a 60 for energy and personal connection. Readability, I think it reads actually pretty well. It has the little white book, and the little white book is actually pretty good. So readability, I think the score is pretty high, and I'm going to give it a smiley face. And I'm going to give it a 77 for readability. I also think it scores highly on uniqueness, because I don't think there's anything quite like this. And it is quite unique. I wish that it was more cohesive in a way, because it kind of varies in types of characters on the cards, and so that unique element of it I don't think is quite a positive, but I still think it's going to score very highly. So let's give it another smiley face for uniqueness, and a little bit in the middle range of the smiley face. So let's give it a 68 for uniqueness. So that gives the Faerie Tarot a very healthy overall score of 365, putting it currently as the second place winner behind the Cozy Witch. Next up, we have the Tarot Nuages. And I got this deck back in September, so not too long ago. and I paid $18, and that is the current price on Amazon. It is a US Games deck, so the cardstock is good. Let's give it a shuffle. It's a little stiff and thicker than some of the nicer cardstock or some of the other US Games decks. So for card usability, for card stock, I'm actually going to take it down a few notches from what we've had from US Games decks so far, because it is a little longer than some of the standard decks that we've had. And for me, I have quite large hands, and it is a stretch. So I would imagine if your hands were smaller, you would not be able to do that. And because this cardstock is a little bit stiffer, the side shuffle is not going to be that easy either. So for card usability, I am actually going to give this a bit of an unamused face, but on the very high end of that. Just because of its length and the thickness of the cardstock, I think that the stiffness with use, it'll soften up a bit, but it's still, if someone has smaller hands, it's still, and for me, it's a little bit of an uncomfortable stretch. And I think too, because they could have made it shorter, like we're not really gaining that extra length in the image. It's really just the border. So they could have kind of brought those titles in a little bit and then made it shorter. Or if they're going to make it a long card to make the image, give us that extra length in the image. So for card usability, I'm going to give it an unamused face and a score of 36. So for versatility, I haven't used this deck too much, but I'm going back to my comments on the Medieval Mischief, in that not everyone is going to love these characters in here. They're a little strange. So the deck for me couldn't be used for anyone at any time. I enjoy it very much, but it has a very specific color palette as well. I don't know that I would use it in any other special practices other than just general readings or readings around a specific theme, but it probably, I don't imagine, will go anywhere in any other spiritual practices that I do. So its versatility level is a little low. So I am going to also give this the unamused face, and I'm going to give it a score of 20 for versatility. For energy and personal connection, I actually think the energy of this deck is really pleasant. When I pulled it out of the box, it makes me smile. I think it feels good. I think it brings you into its world, and connects you with the characters and the story and what's going on here. So I think for its energy and personal connection, it's going to get a pretty high score, and I'm going to give it a smiley face for energy and personal connection, and I'm going to give it a score of 78. For readability, the guidebook that comes with this is actually all in English, and it's really good. I actually love the size of the font in the guidebook is really good. It's not a struggle to read. The cards themselves read very well. I think it, follows RWS fairly well, but has its own personality within that. And I think that's fantastic when a deck does that. It makes it easy to read, but also engaging. So readability, I'm actually going to give this the party face for readability. And I'm going to give it a score of 86 for readability. Uniqueness, this deck is very unique. And it's pretty exciting in its uniqueness. I think it tells its own story. I feel excited to enter into its world. So I am going to also give this a party face for uniqueness, and I am going to give it a score of 83. So that is going to give the Tarot Nuages a very healthy score of 307, knocking Dungeons and Dragons out of third place. So our current running winners are Cozy Witch at number 1, Faerie Tarot at number 2, and now the Tarot Nuages at
Next,
number
we have the
Black
3.
Tarot. I purchased this deck back in February, and I paid $20, and the current Amazon price is $18, so a great value. And the quality of the cards is actually really, really nice. They're matte, and have a bit of almost like a rose petal finish, but not quite. The card quality is actually very high for a mass market deck in this price range. They shuffle very well. It's a thick deck though, so it is a little bit, it's not an easy shuffle because of the size and thickness of the deck. So for card usability, I am going to give it a smiley face because of the card quality, but I think it could be, it's not the easiest deck I have to shuffle, and I'm not excited to shuffle it. So I'm going to give it for card usability a smiley face with a score of 70. Moving on to versatility, this deck is really versatile. It reads really well following the RWS system. The images are really clear. The font choice I really enjoy. I enjoy the color palette of the deck. I think it pairs really well with a lot of things. I can use this in this deck in general readings, as well as I've used it in ancestral work. So as far as versatility, it scores really high, and I'm actually going to give this one the party face for versatility, and I'm going to give it a score of 84. Next, we have personal connection and the energy of the deck, and the energy of the deck is really good and really positive. I do feel a connection to this deck, and I don't think that connection quite brings me to the excited level of using it. So I'm going to give it a smiley face, but right at the top end with a score of 78. Now, as far as readability, it reads really well. It kind of, this category is kind of combined with versatility, right? But as far as readability, as far as ease of reading, it has a really nice guidebook, but it's not necessary to use it. It can be read without the guidebook, and very easy to read. The meanings come through really well. And gives really great readings. So I'm going to give this, again, a very high smiley face rating of 77 for readability. Now for uniqueness, it's also a very unique deck because of its entirely has black figures in the deck, and it's a deck that is unique in my collection in that way. I have a few other decks that fit in that genre with Hoodoo Tarot and the Dust to Onyx, but it is unique and I feel like it's doing it in a more modern way than those other decks. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it the party face for uniqueness and give it a score of 83. So that brings the Black Tarot up to the top of the list in first place with a score of 392. So now it is in first place. The Cozy Witch is in second place, and that brings the Faerie Tarot in third place with 365. Next on the list, points, we have the Erotic Tarot. I purchased this back in May and paid $18, and that's the current price on Amazon. So if we look at card usability, we are back to the more cardboardy card stock, and after feeling the Black Tarot, this feels like a bit of a bargain. bucket deck. It's definitely showing its $18 price point. The cardstock quality is good though. It is a thicker deck again, and feels a little bit longer than a standard deck. So as far as usability, although it shuffles quite well, it is on the larger side and a little bit more uncomfortable to shuffle, just because of its thickness and its size. And but the card quality is fine and passable. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not super thin. It's a good thickness. So for card usability, I am going to give this a neutral face, on the lower end of neutral face, and I'm going to give it a score of 39. And so next we have versatility. So I would not use this deck in anything but a kind of general reading and a specific reading regarding this particular energy. And so for versatility, the score has to be quite low. I'm probably only going to use this deck for myself or with someone that I have an intimate relationship with. So for versatility, it's going to score pretty low. And we're going to give it the unamused face, and I'm going to give it a score of 19, which isn't its fault. I mean, that's kind of that's kind of its purpose. So, but for versatility, that's its score. For energy and personal connection, I don't feel a personal connection to this deck, but I do feel that the energy of this deck is actually very good and very positive. So I'm going to give it a neutral face, and I'm going to give it a high end of a neutral face, almost to a smile. And I'm going to give it a score of 58 for energy and personal connection. As far as readability, it's a pip deck. So, sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Sometimes I'm not. Pip decks I love to use, but for me, they aren't as readable as, a deck with illustrated minors. This has a guidebook. The guidebook is pretty good. So for readability, I'm going to give it a neutral face again, and I'm going to give it a score of 56 points for readability. For uniqueness, it is very unique. It holds a very specific place in my collection. It stands apart from other things. There's nothing quite like it in my collection. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it the party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 89 for uniqueness. So that is going to give it a total score of 261 points, and it's not knocking anybody out of the top 5. Number 6 next deck is the Rebel Heart Tarot. I got this back in April and I paid $23 for it. It's currently on Amazon for $20. So as far as card usability, it feels thick again and wide. So very similar cardstock to the last deck. I would say a bit thinner than that one. So a little easier to shuffle, but definitely has that kind of cheaper cardstock feel to it. I remember when I got this deck back in April, being a little bit disappointed with the cardstock and kind of wishing that it was on nicer cardstock. I do like the very rounded corners on the deck. It's perfectly easy to shuffle, but my desire for it to have better cardstock is going to have to give it the neutral face and a score of 62. As far as versatility, I feel like this is a deck that I would only use really for general readings. I mean, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Not to say that within those readings, there wouldn't be a lot of depth there, but I wouldn't be pulling this out if I was doing any special kind of readings, I don't think. I really enjoyed this deck for the first couple weeks that I got it, and then I just haven't really wanted to reach for it since. It's kind of lost its appeal in a very short time. It was a really hot, fast burner that I think burned out pretty quick for me. So for versatility, I'm going to give it a pretty low score. I'm going to give it the unamused face, and I'm going to give it a score of 35. As far as energy and personal connection, I do have to give it credit for the fact that it immediately, I connected with it on a very deep level. It just didn't last. It was like, like kind of what you mean, you're really excited about them. And then it just, I don't know, they're not what you thought, or it just doesn't work out. But like that, that initial meeting, there was definitely a spark. So I do have to give it a smiley face for its attempt to connect with me, at least on a surface level, which it managed to do. And I'm going to give it a 77 for energy and personal connection. As far as readability, it reads really well. It's not, it's not far off an RWS clone. I'm trying to think if I was a new reader, whether I'd find this challenging. I don't think so. I think it reads pretty straight. I think readability is really good. So I'm going to give this a smiley face, and I'm going to give it a score of 74 for readability. As far as uniqueness, I feel like there is a really unique element to this deck, in that it almost feels like it's collage photographs. Nikki Cotton is an amazing artist, and you can definitely feel her energy very strongly in this deck, as well as Alice Grist, and that kind of female duo together creating this deck. I feel like when I'm using this deck, they're like present with me. And of course, there isn't any other deck that kind of gives me that energy. So I feel like on uniqueness, I think it's going to have to score pretty highly. So I'm going to give it the party face for uniqueness and a score of 94. So that is going to give the Rebel Heart Tarot a pretty healthy score of 342. Putting it at number 4 on the list. Next deck on this list is the Necronomicon. This I bought for $20 on Amazon, and the price is currently $20. I got it pretty recently, back in September. I have no connection to the work of H.P. Lovecraft, and no real desire to either. But at some point, you never know. So let's have a look at card usability. The cardstock on this is pretty nice for a mass market deck. It shuffles really well. A little bit of sticking, pushing it back together, but really pleased with the card quality on this one, especially at the $20 price range. So for card usability, I am going to give it a party face, because I think it's really good, actually. I'm going to give it a party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 90 on card usability. So let's go into versatility. I don't think I would use this for general readings. I would have to be in a certain mood for this deck. It's a great storytelling deck, and I really have enjoyed working with the guidebook. I love the images. I don't know if it would be great any time of year either. I feel like this is definitely something the darker half of the year, perhaps even in that little niche between, in that fall season when we're coming towards Halloween, and the spooky season. I'm not feeling drawn to it right now as we sit here more in that Yule season. So for versatility, it's going to score pretty low. I'm going to give it the unamused face, and I'm going to give it a score of 27 for versatility. For energy and personal connection, the stories really did draw me in, and I did feel a connection to this deck. I feel like the energy is quite neutral, neither good or bad. And I'm going to give this a neutral face on the higher end. I'm going to give it a score of 54 for energy and personal connection. So as far as readability, there is some of the major arcana suits have been changed, the names, and also some of the suit names have been changed, although they're easy to figure out. So readability, I don't know that that right out of the, I don't know that it's the easiest deck to read with. I think I'm really wanting to go into the guidebook. And for that reason, I'm going to give readability the unamused face. And I'm going to give it a score of 19 for readability. Uniqueness, I'm going to score it quite high because I think it is quite unique. I think it tells a unique story. I think the quotes from H.P. Lovecraft are really interesting. I feel it like it's really engaging. So I'm going to give this one a smiley face, and I'm going to give it a high score of 79 for uniqueness. So that is going to give the Necronomicon a score of 269 points and put it at number 8th on the list so far. The next deck on the list is the Hush Tarot. I got this back in August and I paid $22. It's currently on Amazon for $21. This is my second time around. In 2023 is my second time around with the Hush Tarot. I got it back in 2020 and I just didn't care for it. It didn't resonate with me. I couldn't read with it very well. So this 2023 is a second go around with the Hush Tarot. So let's look at card usability and check out the card stock and the size of the deck. It is US Games. And so the card stock is like the rest of them we've had with US Games. It's a little on the thicker side, but shuffles really well. The cards are a little bit smaller, so also really nice. Makes it really comfortable to shuffle. So for card usability, I'm going to give the Hush Tarot a smiley face. And for card usability, I'm going to give it a party face because what I'm looking for when I'm giving a party face for the card usability is when I see it, do I really want to shuffle it? Am I excited to shuffle? And I do feel like that with this deck. So I'm going to give it the party face and I'm going to give it a score of 93 for usability. For versatility, I think it's going to score quite low for versatility for me. I don't find it easy to read, so I need to get into the guidebook. I need to be in the right space for this deck. And I'm still getting there with it. I would imagine when I get to know it really well, its versatility score would increase. But for right now, I'm going to give it an unamused face for versatility, and I'm going to give it a score of 23. So for personal connection and energy, the thing that made me rehome this deck and tentatively bring it back in was because for me, the energy of the deck isn't great. So I still kind of feel like that. I still feel like I haven't made that personal connection. So for personal connection and energy for the Hush Tarot, it's going to get the angry, frustrated face. I really am trying. And we're going to give it a score of 7 for energy and personal connection. For readability, for the same reasons as its lack of versatility, it's a little bit more difficult. But with the guidebook, it does read quite well. It's not confusing in anywhere. There's certainly decks that are less readable. I have had some really good readings from it. So I am going to give this the neutral face for readability, and I'm going to give it a score of 45. Uniqueness. I feel like this deck is really unique. The energy in this deck is unique. There's nothing quite like it. And so for uniqueness, I'm going to give it a high score. I'm going to give it the party face for uniqueness because nothing else filled its space in the time that it was gone, and it managed to come back into my collection. So I'm going to give it the party face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 85. That is going to give it a total score of 253 points and make it number 10 on our list so far. Okay, so I'm gonna end this video here. That is not the end of the list of the decks under $23, so they will be a part 1.2, but I want to keep these videos at a manageable size, both to upload and for watchability. So next on the list we have the Witchlings Academy, so I'm going to start the next video with that deck, which will be uploaded very soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had as much fun as I did in this first part, and we will continue this all through the month of December. Let me know which is your favorite deck, if you agree with my top list or my voting or scoring, and I would love to have a chat about the decks that came into my collection in 2023. Here are the top 5 decks and their scores as they stand right now. See you in the next video.
Unbreakable.